February 14th, 1969, Valentine's Day. Inside the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners in Springfield, Missouri, a 71-year-old man dies of cardiac failure in a hospital bed. His name is Vito Genovese. He has been locked up for nearly a decade, yet he still commands the most powerful crime family in America from behind bars. 4 decades in organized crime, underboss to Lucky Luciano, orchestrator of at least half a dozen murders, survivor of exile in fascist Italy, a murder trial where every witness was killed before they could testify, and the Appalachian disaster that exposed the mafia to the entire world. At his peak, his wife testified he brought in $20,000 to $30,000 a week from rackets alone. His crime family bore his name, the Genovese family, and it was the most feared organization in the American underworld. But when Vito Genovese dies on that Valentine's Day, his declared estate is worth $1,000. His wife had already testified against him in open court, the first mob wife in history to break omerta against a sitting boss. His children are left with nothing but a name they can never escape, and enemies they did nothing to earn. His daughter Nancy becomes a kindergarten teacher for 30 years and lives to 102. His son Philip carries his father's casket at the funeral, then disappears into a quiet life no one ever writes about. His stepdaughter Marie, whose biological father Vito allegedly had strangled so he could marry her mother, grows up calling her father's killer Dad. His grandson sits down decades later and writes a novel about what it means to carry the Genovese name. This is what happened to Vito Genovese's family, and how his children chose to bury the name their father made infamous. Vito Genovese was born on November 27, 1897, in Risigliano, a small hamlet in the commune of Tufino, province of Naples, Italy. His parents were Felice and Nunziata Genovese. The family, including his siblings Carmine, Michael, and Giovanna, immigrated to the United States aboard the SS Taormina on May 23, 1913, settling in Little Italy, Manhattan. Vito had completed only a 5th grade education in Italy. He was 15 years old when he arrived on Mulberry Street, and he started stealing from pushcart vendors almost immediately. By his late teens, he had befriended Charles Lucky Luciano, a partnership that would reshape American organized crime for the next 40 years. Genovese's first arrest came at 19 for illegal firearms possession, earning him 60 days on Blackwell's Island. Through the 1920s, he worked under Giuseppe Joe the Boss Masseria during Prohibition, running bootlegging operations financed by Arnold Rothstein alongside Luciano and Frank Costello. Genovese proved himself not as a thinker or a strategist, but as a man willing to pull the trigger when others hesitated. The Castellamarese War of 1930 to 1931 made his reputation in blood. On February 26, 1930, Genovese allegedly murdered rival boss Gaetano Reina with a shotgun blast to the head on a Bronx street corner. Then came the pivotal hit that ended the war. On April 15, 1931, Genovese was one of 4 gunmen, alongside Albert Anastasia, Joe Adonis, and Bugsy Siegel. They walked into Nuova Villa Tamaro restaurant on Coney Island and shot Joe Masseria dead while Luciano excused himself to the restroom. 5 months later, Luciano arranged the murder of Salvatore Maranzano, the self-proclaimed boss of bosses. The old order was finished. Vito Genovese became Luciano's trusted underboss in what was then the Luciano crime family, overseeing narcotics, extortion, and gambling operations across Manhattan and New Jersey. When Luciano was sentenced to 30 to 50 years for pandering in 1936, Genovese became acting boss of the entire operation, but the Boccia murder caught up with him. In 1934, Genovese had ordered the killing of Ferdinand Boccia, nicknamed the Shadow, over a $150,000 gambling swindle, and witnesses started talking. On January 10, 1937, Genovese fled to Italy carrying $750,000 in cash, leaving Frank Costello to run things in his absence, a decision he would spend 2 decades trying to reverse. In exile near Naples, he reinvented himself as a fascist benefactor. He befriended Mussolini's son-in-law, Galeazzo Ciano, allegedly supplying him with cocaine. He donated nearly $4 million to the fascist party and was awarded the Order of Saints Maurice and Lazarus, one of Italy's most prestigious honors, given to the man who had strangled his way to power in New York. He ordered the murder of anti-fascist journalist Carlo Tresca from across the Atlantic in January 1943, a favor to Mussolini's government. When the Allies invaded later that year, Genovese switched sides overnight, offering his services to the US Army as an interpreter while running one of the largest black market operations in southern Italy out of his AMGOT headquarters in Nola. Trucks full of Allied supplies, including flour, sugar, and olive oil, disappeared under his coordination and resurfaced on the Italian black market at enormous markups. His cover unraveled in August 1944 when Army CID agent Orange C. Dickey identified him as a wanted fugitive. Genovese offered Dickey a bribe of $250,000, then threats. Dickey refused both. Extradited to New York in June 1945, Genovese faced trial for the Boccia murder. But the prosecution's case was systematically dismantled. Key witness Peter Latempa was poisoned in protective custody when someone slipped a lethal dose into a pill he took for gallstones. Corroborating witness Jerry Esposito was shot dead on a New Jersey roadside. Charges were dismissed on June 10, 1946. Judge Samuel Leibowitz told Genovese from the bench that if even a shred of corroborating evidence had survived, he would have been sent to the electric chair. Through the late 1940s and the 1950s, Genovese clawed back power with calculated violence. He had Willie Moretti killed in 1951, opening the underboss position. He sent Vincent the Chin Gigante to shoot Frank Costello in the lobby of 115 Central Park West on May 2, 1957. The bullet grazed Costello's scalp. The message landed. Costello stepped aside. Then Genovese conspired with Carlo Gambino to murder Albert Anastasia on October 25, 1957. Anastasia was gunned down in the barbershop of the Park Sheraton Hotel while getting a shave. At 59, Vito Genovese sat atop the most powerful crime family in America. During all of this, the Genovese household lived on the New Jersey shore in comfort that the rackets paid for. The family's most extravagant property was the Deep Cut Estate, 35 acres at 152 Red Hill Road in Middletown Township. Vito purchased it in 1935 from Florence Sperling. The 12-room mansion featured Italian gardens, a swimming pool, a 3-hole golf course, 2 tennis courts, a greenhouse, and a miniature replica of Mount Vesuvius that could erupt with smoke during dinner parties. After the mansion burned under suspicious circumstances on February 23, 1937, the same year Vito fled to Italy, the family relocated. In 1946, Vito purchased 130 Ocean Boulevard in Atlantic Highlands for $40,000 cash. Anna later testified under oath that Vito spent $250,000 renovating it, imported carpets, marble staircases, 24-karat gold plates, crystal chandeliers. While the children of their victims mourned in tenement apartments, the Genovese children played on lawns that murder had paid for. In this house, 3 children grew up together. Vito's first wife, Donata Ragone, had married him around 1922. They had one daughter, Nancy. Donata died of tuberculosis on September 17, 1931, at just 28 years old. She was buried at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens. The biography King of Crime by Dom Frasca describes Vito striking Donata for accidentally spilling wine on an associate, an early sign of the domestic violence that would define his second marriage as well. 12 days after Anna's first husband, Gerard Vernotico, was strangled to death on a rooftop at 124 Thompson Street in Manhattan on March 16, 1932, Vito married Anna Patillo Vernotico on March 28, 1932. She was his 4th cousin through her mother. She was 6 months pregnant with their son Philip at the ceremony. A bystander named Antonio Lonzo, who witnessed the strangulation on the rooftop, was also killed that night. Mob informant Joseph Valachi later testified that Genovese ordered Vernotico's murder specifically to take Anna. The marriage gave Genovese a blended family of 3 children, his biological daughter Nancy from Donata, his biological son Philip with Anna, and Anna's daughter from her first marriage, Marie Vernotico, the girl whose father Vito had allegedly killed so he could marry her mother. These 3 children grew up together in the Atlantic Highlands mansion. They went to school together. They sat at the same dinner table, and the violence that built their world was never discussed. But this life built on blood money had a fatal weakness. Vito Genovese could control the commission, but he could not control his own family. The woman he married by allegedly having her husband murdered would become the first mob wife in history to testify against a sitting boss in open court. When Vito fled to Italy in 1937, he left Anna behind with mobster Stephen Franzi assigned to supervise her and manage the family's affairs. Instead of waiting quietly, Anna built her own empire. She opened Club Caravan in 1939. She co-owned the 181 Club, known in Manhattan as the homosexual Copacabana. She later operated Club 82 at 82 East 4th Street, a pioneering drag bar that employed performers no other venue would touch. Anna handled $20,000 to $30,000 a week in racket money, delivered large sums of cash to Vito in Italy, and she was the only person with the combination to the family safe. When Vito returned in 1945, he found Anna independent and defiant. He demanded a divorce because he had fallen in love with Anna Calandriello, the wife of an associate. Anna refused to go quietly. She walked out in 1950. Then she did something no mob wife had ever done. On March 2nd, 1953, Anna Genovese took the stand in New Jersey Superior Court in Freehold and testified for 4 hours. She told the court that Vito earned $20,000 a week from the Italian lottery alone. She listed his assets, 4 Greenwich Village nightclubs, a Virginia dog track, and income from gambling, loan sharking, and extortion across 2 states. She named the mob leaders who visited their home: Albert Anastasia, Frank Costello, Longies Willman. And she described the violence inside the marriage. Vito had broken her nose, he had set her hair on fire with a cigarette, he had blackened both her eyes. Columnist Dorothy Kilgallen wrote a warning in her newspaper column. If she were Mrs. Vito Genovese, she would be careful crossing streets. Vito did not retaliate against Anna. She was reportedly his only soft spot, as author Peter Maas wrote. Instead, he punished the man he blamed for failing to control her. On June 18, 1953, Stephen Franz was lured to a Bronx restaurant and strangled to death on Vito's orders. Both Anna's maintenance suit and Vito's divorce countersuit were dismissed in 1954. They remained legally married but never spoke again. His triumph as boss lasted only 3 weeks. The Appalachian meeting of November 14, 1957 was convened at Joseph Barbara's 53-acre estate in upstate New York to ratify Genovese's supremacy. It was raided by state police. Over 60 mobsters were caught fleeing through the woods in their silk suits. The debacle forced J. Edgar Hoover to publicly acknowledge organized crime's existence, and it triggered the federal investigations that would bring down an entire generation of bosses. On April 17, 1959, Genovese was convicted of conspiracy to traffic narcotics. He received a 15-year sentence and a $20,000 fine. The conviction relied heavily on the testimony of informant Nelson Cantalopes, and many in the underworld believed Luciano, Costello, and Meyer Lansky had paid Cantalopes $100,000 to set Genovese up. He entered federal prison and never left. Nancy was married and teaching in Atlantic Highlands. Philip was living on the Jersey Shore. Anna was running Club 82 in Manhattan. Marie was raising her children separately. The family scattered in 4 different directions, and the man who had held them all together through fear was behind bars for good. On February 14, 1969, Vito Genovese died of congestive cardiac failure at Springfield. He was 71 years old. He was still technically the boss of his family. His declared estate was approximately $1,000, an obvious fiction. The hidden fortune, the Swiss accounts, the safe deposit boxes, the weekly racket income Anna had described under oath was never traced. His children inherited a name, a set of enemies, and nothing else. Do you think Anna was brave for testifying or reckless? Let me know in the comments. Anna Patillo Genovese outlived her husband by 13 years. After the divorce trial collapsed in 1954, she continued working first at Club 82 and then at the Warwick Hotel. She never remarried because she never could. The divorce suits had been dismissed and she remained Mrs. Vito Genovese on paper until the day she died. What the public never knew was the private life Anna had built in private. She was bisexual, and her longtime partner was a woman known as Jackie, a drag king performer from the Greenwich Village scene. Anna ran her nightclubs not just as mob fronts, but as genuine safe spaces for the LGBTQ+ community in an era when such venues barely existed. Club 82 and the 181 Club were among the only establishments in New York City where drag performers could work openly and audiences could gather without fear of police raids. Anna was their employer, their protector, and in some cases, their patron. Her grandson Frank later described how she supported performers in the early stages of their careers, including a young Barbara Streisand. She helped pay bills, offered work, and sometimes backed artists with cash when they needed it most. Anna was a quiet but vital patron in a scene that would later become famous. On January 20th, 1982, Anna suffered a stroke. She died at St. Vincent's Hospital at the age of 76 or 77. Her exact birth year was never firmly established. At her bedside were her daughter Marie, her granddaughter Mia, and Jackie, who Mia was meeting for the first time. The woman who had broken omerta in open court, who had run Manhattan nightclubs and handled thousands in mob cash every week, died surrounded by the people she had chosen, rather than the people she had been married into. In a final strange symmetry, Anna was buried next to Vito in the Genovese family vault at St. John's Cemetery in Middle Village, Queens. The woman who testified against him in open court spent eternity beside him. Her story resurfaced decades later. In 2019, Anna's grandchildren Frank and Mia Esposito appeared on the Mob Queens podcast, sharing family memories that had never been made public. Mia recounted meeting Jackie for the first time at Anna's deathbed and confirmed her grandmother's bisexuality. The podcast became the basis for an HBO limited series announced in November 2021, with Ruth Wilson cast to portray Anna and writers Lena Dunham and Dennis Lehane attached to the project. As of early 2026, no premiere date has been confirmed. Anna Genovese, the wife Vito tried to silence, may yet become more famous than he ever was. Nancy Genovese was born around 1923, the only child of Vito and his first wife, Donata Ragone. She was about 8 years old when her mother died of tuberculosis. After that, she was raised by Vito and Anna in the Atlantic Highlands house, growing up alongside her half-brother Philip and her stepsister Marie in a home funded by extortion, gambling, and murder. She chose a completely different path. Nancy graduated from Marymount College in Tarrytown, New York in 1945 with a Bachelor of Arts in French. She pursued advanced studies at Laval University in Quebec and later at Fordham University in New York. She married Pasquale Simonetti, and together they owned the Piano Bar in Long Branch, New Jersey. But her real career was not in business. Nancy spent 30 years teaching kindergarten at St. Agnes School in Atlantic Highlands, the same parish church where her father's funeral mass would be held in 1969. She was a devout Catholic. She was a member of St. Jude's Guild and the Altar and Rosary Society. She spent decades in the same small-town parish community where everyone knew everyone, and if anyone in Atlantic Highlands knew whose daughter she was, they never said it publicly. She appeared in the 1953 divorce proceedings, testifying on Vito's behalf and denying Anna's claims about the family's finances. She told the court the household was not nearly as wealthy as Anna described. It was the last time the Genovese name appeared next to hers in any public record. After that, she was simply Mrs. Simonetti, a teacher, a parishioner, a mother. Her obituary, published after her death on August 5, 2025, identifies her only as Nancy Simonetti. The word Genovese does not appear anywhere in it. She lived to be 102 years old. She died at her home in Middletown, New Jersey, just a few miles from the ruins of the Deep Cut estate where she had played as a child next to her father's miniature Mount Vesuvius. She left behind 4 children: Donna Nerthan, Philip Simonetti, Patrice Simonetti, and Joseph Simonetti, along with 9 great-grandchildren and 19 great-great-grandchildren. Not one of them has any documented connection to organized crime. The daughter of the most feared mafia boss in America spent her adult life teaching 5-year-olds to read. She outlived her father by 56 years, and she did it on her own terms. Philip Genovese was born on June the 30th, 1932, just 3 months after his parents' wedding, because Anna had been 6 months pregnant when she married Vito. He grew up in the Atlantic Highlands mansion with the marble staircases and the gold plates and the imported carpets. He ate dinner in rooms decorated with 24-karat gold while his father ran a criminal empire from the next room. At 18, Philip crashed his father's car on Route 9 in Freehold, injuring 5 people. The resulting lawsuit produced a judgment of $14,250 that was later overturned on appeal. It was the closest Philip Genovese ever came to making the newspapers for anything other than being Vito's son. He married Rose Calandriello. Her father, Thomas Calandriello, had operated mob-connected businesses on the waterfront at the Naval Ammunition Depot, Earl, and was barred from the facility in 1953 as a poor security risk. Despite this father-in-law connection, Philip himself had no documented criminal record. No arrests, no indictments, no FBI file entries linked him to any racket or any crew. On February the 17th, 1969, 3 days after Vito's death, Philip was photographed carrying his father's casket out of St. Agnes Church in Atlantic Highlands. The press cameras captured him in his dark suit as a pallbearer for the man whose name he shared, and out of the same church where his half-sister had taught generations of children. Federal agents watched the funeral from unmarked cars. Reporters scribbled notes. The photographs ran in newspapers across New Jersey. And then Philip Genovese vanished from public life. Vito's will split the declared $1,000 estate between Philip and Nancy. There was nothing else. No hidden accounts surfaced, no properties transferred, no inheritance of any kind has ever been documented. The $750,000 Vito had carried to Italy, the $500,000 in Swiss accounts Anna had testified about, and the weekly racket income that had paid for the marble and the gold, none of it reached his children. Nothing reached his children. Philip spent the remaining 54 years of his life making sure no one ever photographed him again. He lived quietly on the New Jersey shore. He raised his family away from the spotlight. He died on September 15th, 2023, at the age of 91. His obituary contained no mention of organized crime, no mention of the Genovese family, and no mention of his father by name. It described a man from New Jersey who lived and died without leaving a mark on the world his father had tried to own. If you're finding this story interesting, consider subscribing. We cover the families behind organized crime's biggest names every week. Marie Vernotico was born around 1927, the daughter of Anna Patillo and Gerard Vernotico. She was about 5 years old when her biological father was strangled to death on the rooftop of 124 Thompson Street in Manhattan. 12 days later, the man who allegedly ordered the killing married her mother and became her stepfather. She grew up in the Genovese household. She went to school with Nancy and Philip. She sat at the same table. She called Vito her father. Whatever she knew or did not know about how Gerard Vernotico actually died, she lived under the same roof as the man responsible for it. Every holiday, every birthday, every family dinner, she sat across from the man who had allegedly ordered her real father strangled on a rooftop so he could take her mother. During the 1953 divorce trial, Marie took the stand on her mother's behalf. She was the only child who sided with Anna. She testified that Vito raised his hand to her in a threatening manner when she confronted him about his treatment of her mother. It was the only time Marie's name appeared in any courtroom record. She married a man named Esposito and became Marie Genovese Esposito. She raised her children, including Frank and Mia, far from the world her stepfather inhabited. When Anna suffered her stroke in January 1982, Marie was at her bedside. She was there at the end, holding her mother's hand in St. Vincent's Hospital. Vito's will made his feelings about Marie unmistakable. While Philip and Nancy split the declared $1,000 estate, Marie received exactly $5. Not an oversight, not an administrative error, a deliberate message from beyond the grave. The stepdaughter whose biological father he had allegedly killed was worth $5 to Vito Genovese. Marie died before August 2025, though her exact death date is not recorded in any public source. She is the most invisible member of the Genovese family, a woman who spent her entire life trying to leave no trace. Given who her stepfather was and what he had done to her father, that invisibility might have been the smartest decision any of Vito's children ever made. The grandchildren carried the name even further from the underworld than their parents had. Through Nancy, Vito has 4 grandchildren: Donna Nerthan, Philip Simonetti, Patrice Simonetti, and Joseph Simonetti. Her obituary lists 9 great-grandchildren and 19 great-great-grandchildren. None have any public connection to organized crime. The Simonetti line is exactly what you would find in any working-class New Jersey town. Through Philip, the most notable descendant is Philip A. Genovese Jr. He attended Christian Brothers Academy, then graduated from Villanova University with a degree in English literature. Instead of following his grandfather into the family business, he wrote about it. His novel, The Grandfather Clause, was published by Author House in 2007, a semi-autobiographical thriller about a man confronting the legacy of a crime boss grandfather. It won first prize for fiction from the Santa Fe Trail Creative Arts Council and was a semi-finalist for the Eric Hoffer Award. In his autobiography, Philip Jr. described a childhood in which Vito was simply Pop, the old man who showed up for Sunday dinners at the family home. The visits were normal, the conversations were ordinary. Then one day, Pop stopped coming. Young Philip was told his grandfather had gone away on business. In 1961, that business was a federal prison cell. 8 years later, his grandfather died behind bars. Philip Jr. processed that inheritance not through silence like his father, and not through distance like his Aunt Nancy. He processed it by writing it down. He turned the weight of the Genovese name into fiction. He was reportedly working on a sequel called The Termination Clause. The name Genovese appeared on a book spine instead of an FBI indictment. The Genovese crime family still operates today. It remains one of the 5 families of New York, with an estimated 250 made members and operations spanning labor racketeering, extortion, illegal gambling, and loan sharking across the eastern seaboard. But not one of those members shares Vito's blood. The family name became the organization's brand, and the actual family became strangers to it. Vito's daughter taught kindergarten. His son carried the casket and walked away forever. His stepdaughter erased herself from the record. His grandson wrote a novel. The empire that brought in $20,000 a week left its heirs with nothing. The Atlantic Highlands mansion was lost to a construction judgment for $32,724. The Deep Cut Estates became a public botanical garden, where 100,000 visitors walk the grounds every year. The Swiss bank accounts were never found. What Vito Genovese actually left his family was not money or power or protection. It was a name, and every one of them spent their lives making sure that name would not define them. That same pattern, a criminal empire that swallows the founder's name while the actual bloodline scatters into silence, played out very differently with another New York boss. A boss whose children did not walk away so cleanly, whose sons did not choose teaching or novels or anonymity, and whose family business truly passed from father to son in ways that Vito Genovese never managed.